Welcome to the Birds vs. Boys Game Day Reaction Show, Super Bowl edition. It is over. The Eagles fall in the Super Bowl 38-35 to the Chiefs. I'm Aidan Powers here for Birds vs. Boys. Kevin and I will do our regular show this week. Hopefully we can keep it as fun as we had all year, even though the football season has come to an end. And it came crashing down in probably one of the most painful ways that you could end a season in what was probably the most fun Eagles season of my lifetime, if you're my age. So the season ironically ends in a situation where it began with a roster that was so talented, you hoped that Jalen Hurts was good enough to make it worthwhile. And in the end, they lost because they couldn't get the ball back. And the team and that roster that we talked about wasn't good enough to get the ball back to Jalen Hurts, who was awesome and who fit the bill as a franchise quarterback and MVP candidate. It was just a little bit ironic to see that play out. Now, why did he not get the ball back? Let's just get into it right away. I think there's two major things. So it's the minor thing and then it's the major thing. The minor thing being the holding call and the major thing just being the overall defense in general in the second half. So I will just never, ever in my life get to stop thinking about the fact that if it weren't for that holding call, Jalen Hurts gets the ball back, down 3, minute 45 to go, a few timeouts left. Like, it's the situation that you dream about if you are a quarterback. It's honestly a situation you dream about if you're a fan, to see your team march down the field with a chance to win, a chance to tie, a chance to send it into overtime. To play that what-if game for the rest of my life because of that phantom holding call is going to sting. It'll never stop stinging, and that what-if feeling will always be there. If Mahomes would have dotted one to Travis Kelce over the middle into the end zone, I think I could have lived with it. Or if he just flat out completes that pass to Juju Smith-Schuster, drops it in the bucket in the end zone, I just have to live with that fact. You know, like you couldn't get a stop when you needed to the most, and it would be over, and you just kind of have to live with that. But with this, it's like, what if? You know, like, what if they don't make that call? What if, what happens? Does Jalen Hurts cement his legacy with a game-winning touchdown drive if they get the ball back? It's the worst thing to do. You'd rather just lose. Like, you'd almost rather lose the way TCU lost. I don't know if TCU fans would agree with me. I'm sure we have some because there's a lot of Cowboys fans of the station. Losing 65-7 in the national championship wasn't fun, but there's no what if. Like, you lost that game. You knew you weren't as talented as the other roster. You come away from this one and you just say, well, what if? Like, we would have had the chance. And I think from a fan's point of view, again, this is just like the minor thing with the Eagles, but from like a football fan's point of view, Kevin and I talk on the show all the time. We love football. Even when our teams aren't playing, we are sucked into football, fantasy football, gambling on football, watching Sunday Night Football to wind down the week, listening to podcasts about football, everything football. And I think a lot of fans do the exact same thing as us. So if you're a fan of the other 30 teams that are not playing in this game, you're saying, give me as much football as I can while I still have the chance. Send this game into overtime. Make it thrilling. You know, just give me as much exciting football as I can get while I still have a chance to have it. And in the end, it ends with an anticlimactic holding penalty, chip shot field goal, a Hail Mary attempt from 70 yards out, which is impossible. It's just it was just the most anticlimactic ending to what was a very, very good football game and our final football game of the 2022 season, which is a shame because I think we would have liked to see that going and just have one of the all-time ESPN Instant Classic #1 if you play NCAA 14. So that was the minor thing, was the holding call. It was a bad call. I know James Bradberry said that he held. You can watch the replay 100 times. You just can't make that call in the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl. Just how it is. But the overarching, more major issue than that is the defense couldn't get a stop in general. Ironically, that would have been the first stop that the Eagles defense made in the entire half if they don't call that holding penalty. That was the major issue. In the second half, Patrick Mahomes had one incompletion if you don't count the play where the holding penalty was called. They had 0 sacks. They forced 0 turnovers. The Chiefs scored on every possession they had, except for they had 1 punt, and they would have scored if it weren't for the field goal that knocked off the upright, and they probably would have scored a touchdown on the final drive, except they're trying to wind the clock down and kick the field goal instead and opted for that over the touchdown. And Jerick McKinnon smartly went down at the 2-yard line. The Eagles defense got 0 stops. None. It was easy schematically for Patrick Mahomes. They got completely out-schemed. The goal line defense, which had been great for the Eagles this year, looked lost. They were losing guys. They weren't able to pass guys off in coverage. Even Travis Kelce, who we knew was their number one target, still somehow found open area where linebackers couldn't stay with them. Down at the goal line, Darius Slay and Avonte Maddox getting lost and confused. They were lost in the sauce. Jonathan Gannon is who we thought he was. It's like that old Dennis Green clip. We are who we thought they were. Well, that really applies to Jonathan Gannon. Anytime he gets aligned against a quarterback who is above average, and we've talked about this plenty of times. So we saw Mahomes last year. We saw him again in the Super Bowl. Dak Prescott's a good one because he's above average, and we've seen him within the division a multitude of times. Justin Herbert last year had an incredible game. Even Derek Carr, who you would still consider above average. But all of those guys, like anytime a quarterback like that comes in and plays Jonathan Gannon's defense, he gets sliced up. And Mahomes just, again, he's the best in the game. And I even though he is the best in the game, I really thought schematically was what did the damage. I thought they did a great job of scheming their guys open. And we had talked about it all week that we said we have a better roster on paper, right? Like the Eagles are better at more positions. They're deeper at more positions. So what did the Chiefs coaching staff do? They schemed their guys open. Like Juju Smith-Schuster was getting open, and I think he had like 4 or 5 receptions there in the second half. And it was just like, because our defense was bad at communicating and getting guys like passed off into coverage from corner to linebacker to safety, all of those things. And a lot of these were just like soft coverages. I think there's a play on that final drive where they pick up 8 yards and a first down, and he's kind of just standing at the sticks. And it's like there's a guy close, but he's clearly just staying in this zone. And it was just another classic Jonathan Gannon performance. And I know he's interviewing for the Arizona Cardinals. And listen, if he wants to stay in Phoenix, Arizona, all power to him. I know there's been a crazy stat about the turnstile that is the Arizona head coaching position over the years for the Cardinals, and I think Jonathan Gannon would be the perfect fit because he'll be out of there in 2 years. He would not make a good coach or head coach, and he doesn't really make that good of a defensive coordinator. And I think in any big moment against a quarterback who can execute well, like a Patrick Mahomes, who is the ultimate player in the game today, then it's struggle for him. And it becomes this Swiss cheese defense. And I think the last text I sent prediction-wise to my dad an hour before the game, I said, the only way the Eagles lose this game is if it's one of those performances where the quarterback has maybe 5-6 incompletions total, all the drives last 6 minutes, and the offense is on the field. Well, you think about the final drive, it takes 5 minutes. It gets them all the way down the field. The Eagles never get the ball back after tying it at 35. And it was a 5.5 minute drive, ended in points. The Eagles never saw the ball again. Jalen Hurts never saw the ball again. Mahomes threw 1 incompletion the entire half. So that's exactly how it played off. As for Jalen Hurts, that was awesome. That was awesome. And I think the fact that we thought we could trust him in moments just because of how great of a leader he is, and this kid just clearly has it up here. Mentally, he's just the one. And I don't think there's any moment that's too big for him. And again, as we get into draft season, follow us because we're going to be doing mock drafts from here until April. Continue to get guys who play in these big moments and aren't scared of the moments. Jalen Hurts is a perfect example of that, who went to not one but 2 major college football programs, who every week is just this colossal affair. Like the divisional round to him was like LSU Alabama week for Jalen. Like it's nothing crazy. And the fact that he was able to do it with his arm and his legs, it was such a remarkable performance. It's going to go down as like the Marcus Page, North Carolina shot where he double pumps, hits the 3, but then Villanova hits the buzzer beater. It's like no one's going to remember how awesome he was because he played Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes won, and Mahomes is the best quarterback in the game. But for Jalen, just such a fantastic performance. And if you come away from that game with anything else, then he's the one. I don't know what to tell you. So he set the record for rushing yards for a quarterback in the Super Bowl. He had 3 rushing touchdowns, also broke the record. Just classic Moore, just like going back to what you're used to. Like they got down to the 1 yard line and they were like, screw it. We know what we're doing. We're pushing. We're going to sneak it with him. So I just thought it was just another great game by him. A lot of 3rd down conversions, 4th down conversions. I'm sure looking back on it, they would have loved to go for that 4th and 3 because they really cooked those guys. They got the offsides penalty on a key 4th and 2 from around the 20 to keep their drive going in the 3rd quarter. All in all, he was fantastic. The deep ball to AJ Brown, you could see it being set up and for him to lay it right on him. Even the Quez Watkins ball probably should have been caught. Another deep shot to DeVonta Smith that set up the touchdown to tie the game. He gets the 2-point conversion using his legs. It was like everything about Jalen Hurts that you thought you liked was on full display in one game. It was the ability to, he took shots and his arm is improved and he was able to hit like guys on third downs. There's a great pass to Goedert on third down. He hit DeVonta Smith in the biggest moment of the game for them to tie the game. He hits the home run ball to A.J. Brown. On third down, he goes to A.J. Brown and they get 10 yards. And then his legs, like he was able to get out of the pocket, pick things up with his legs. He had a few first down conversions just using his legs. He was able to, utilize that QB sneak play that's been so effective for them. And then in a game where all-time stakes, crazy game, back and forth. They're down 35-27. Right between here, stays composed, easy, leads them down the field, gets a 2-point conversion himself, fights through. It's everything that you've liked about Jalen Hurts. It's the dual threat ability, it's the leadership mentally, and it's the improvement of his arm. Everything was on full display. And really, you could even go down to even the last drive of the game, it was on full display. So I was just so happy for him. And just like really hurt again that he didn't get the ball back and didn't get a chance to really, really cement himself, which would have been awesome. And then if you're looking, we're going to talk about the future, but the three guys that stand out to me is like why you're like happy about this team and why the season was so much fun is they surrounded Jalen Hurts with some pretty awesome talent, and it was on full display. A.J. Brown, again, the big touchdown reception. He had over 70 yards touchdown. DeVonta Smith, again, another guy who played in major games, and he came up huge. Apparently, he was in a walking boot after the game, but he was awesome. And I thought that should have stood as a catch late there in the first half. They ended up getting points anyways, but I really thought that DeVonta Smith caught that ball. And I just thought he was again, fantastic. He has been. It was such a great. It's one of those. It's the Luka Trae Young trade all over again, but probably better for both teams because Devontae's been awesome. Micah Parsons has been awesome for the Cowboys, and it just those two guys like paired up. It was exactly what we dreamed and envisioned going into the season. And then you add in this unsung hero in Dallas Goedert, who probably gets overlooked, especially in this game because Travis Kelce is on the other side. And he's playing with two guys in A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith, who are wide receiver 1 and 1A. But Dallas Goedert has some crucial catches. The one where it was the weird challenge play, great catch by him in traffic, hauls it in, gets the feet down. I thought that was so dumb that they were even allowed to challenge it. Like the referees screwed up. They throw the penalty. They weren't sure the substitution patterns. Like what if you're an opposing team? If that's the case, like you can challenge after they throw a penalty flag. If you think it's challengeable, and you need to buy time, just fall down and die. Have 14 guys on the field all just fall down. Like it was just so weird that the Chiefs were allowed to challenge that because the officials kind of got confused or whatever it was. But regardless, I thought Dallas Goedert, again, another fantastic game. It'll get overlooked just like Jalen Hurts were because Travis Kelce is the best tight end in the game. Mahomes is the best quarterback in the game. So guys like Hurts and Goedert are going to get overlooked. But that core four is something special. And add into that Kenny Gainwell, who I think is going to get the highlight of touches next year in a 5th-round pick. It's probably like if you're thinking of Bijan Robinson from Texas at pick 10 or whatever it seems to be getting mocked for the Eagles. Kenny Gainwell is the reason you probably don't do that. Like a 5th-round guy out of Memphis that'd be having this level of impact. I think he'll be special for this team. I unfortunately think that was the end of the Miles Sanders era that kind of went out with a whimper. You don't pay running backs to begin with because it takes too much money and they got to cut money somewhere. And at the same time, like he played very, very poorly. He had a fumble that lost them 3 yards and luckily went out of bounds. And then luckily that one wasn't a call to fumble when he got hit on the ball. Again, not totally his fault, but you could just sense it over time that Gainwell was overtaking Sanders. And I think it's officially there. So I do, again, it's the core four, but I also wanted to shout out Kenny Gainwell for that. And then speaking of the fumbles with Sanders, the biggest one, and if there was one knock on Hurts, and I don't even know if I really blame Hurts for this play. You're driving down the field. It's 3rd and inches. You're getting ready to sneak 92% of the time. Shout out Jason Kelce. It's effective. Isaac Seumalo false start, then you're in 3rd and 6, and then it's a fumble. So you go from driving down the field, 3rd and inches. You have 2 shots to get this QB sneak, which has worked for you all the freaking time. It worked all the time in this game today or yesterday. And then that happens. It puts you in 3rd and 6. You have the fumble. They're going the other way. It's 14-14. Now, who knows how that plays out? Again, I think the Eagles, they kept Mahomes on the bench for that entire second quarter because of that fumble, because the defense got the ball back. Great response by the Eagles to go down and score on that drive. They kept the ball out of Mahomes' hands that entire quarter. You saw the thing. They ran about, 9 plays in a span of an hour and a half, which is a formula for success to beating him, is just keeping him on the sideline. So who knows how it plays out if they go down and score. Maybe the Chiefs just turn around and go down the field in 3 minutes anyways, and it's knotted up at 14-14 or whatever, 21-14 anyways, and ends up 24-14 in halftime as it is. But the fumble was just backbreaking because the sequence of events that led to it. It's like your most handy play of all year, that QB sneak that they might change the rule because the Eagles are so good at it with being able to push the quarterback forward, and you're pushing a guy who can squat 600 pounds behind this offensive line of behemoths. And then all of a sudden it's like, then you're 3rd and 6 and it's a fumble. That was rough. That was really, really rough. Speaking of rough, we'll have to touch on it because I think a lot of people are talking about it today. The grass, this $800,000 grass that took 2 years to build in preparation for the Super Bowl, didn't hold up by halftime. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. How does this happen? And this isn't like, oh, the Eagles lost because of the grass. It's more just like from a logic standpoint, from like both teams and just the NFL in general. Like, you're the NFL. This is the most viewed sporting event in our country. How is it possible that we don't have playable grass and it's horrible and everybody's slipping? Like, how is that a feature in the Super Bowl? Is just like a really, really good question to have. I have always thought players like the grass a lot better, and everybody should go grass. But I feel like there's been a lot of games where I watch in Arizona, and I know this grass was different, but I just feel like a lot of times I've watched the Arizona games, and I think the Eagles have this because they played in Arizona back-to-back years, or 2020 and 2022 they played in Arizona, that it's just like weird that they slip a lot. And it's like, what's happening? Like, it's a weird system where they take the grass out and they have this retractable grass that they take outside of the stadium, then bring it in under the roof. And it's like, what is happening that you're doing all these things and then the grass doesn't hold up, especially in a Super Bowl? Just such a weird issue to have for the most viewed sporting event in our country. And based on how ratings go over time, I'm sure this will probably be the most watched sporting event of all time. The record gets broken every year. So for the grass to be an issue is really something. Again, that's not why the Eagles lost, but the Eagles did lose. And you look to the future, and you're going to say, yeah, future's bright. They've got 2 first-round picks. Like, Hurts is the guy. I just talked about this core 4 on offense. It is a really, really good roster. But you're never guaranteed to go back. Aside from the Chiefs making it back and the Patriots over the course of 2 decades, nobody really makes it back to the Super Bowl. So to be like, oh, yeah, no worries, they'll be back, is this a mindset you can't have? This was a squandered opportunity with probably the most talented Eagles roster of my lifetime. I said it on the show earlier this week. I think they would have beat the Super Bowl team of 2017 by double digits if they put them on the same field. So I think from that point, like, yeah, you're excited about the future, but this was the moment, this was the opportunity, and you lost it, and it's squandered, and it'll sting forever. You will be thinking about Jalen Hurts never getting the ball back at the end of that game for the rest of your life. We'll be doing mock drafts again all off season. We'll see how the roster plays out. I know there's a key staples that are free agents, the Fletcher Coxes, the Jason Kelce's, the Brandon Grahams. Do they come back? Do they retire? Do they go somewhere else? Do the Eagles have the money for them? James Bradberry, who was called for the hold. What happens with him? He was a great addition late. I don't know why the Giants cut him for the $10 million, but whatever, we'll gladly take it. He was extremely helpful this year, and he'll get remembered for that play. But at the same time, we got to remember that he was actually all pro over Darius Slay this season. So we'll see what happens with him. I think what happens now and what Howie Roseman was good at this season is working between the margins. So, they add Linval Joseph, they add Ndamukong Suh in the middle of the year. Literally, they're playing within 3 days. You get guys like that, you bring them in. You sign James Bradberry when he gets released, and you have all these things where you're working in between the margins to help the depth of this team. And you have to be able to do that, and it becomes even more crucial now that you're going to have to pay Jalen Hurts. But you have your core foundation. It's now about working in between the margins. I think one of the things you'll probably see a lot of is getting a wide receiver 3. I don't think Quez Watkins is that guy. I think he would actually be a pretty solid wide receiver 4, but he and Pascal are wide receiver 4s. They're just not the wide receiver 3 type. I don't know if that means drafting Jackson Smith and Jigba or what, but we'll see. But these are the questions that we're going to have to face, because there's plays like the Quez Watkins deep ball that you're just going to think about forever. It'll be like the Edmundo Sosa, like, what if it goes out in game 6 of the World Series? So it's the fun part of Philly sports, is the what ifs that you get to play when it's all said and done. And that's probably what we're going to do. What if we didn't allow a kickoff return or a punt return, the longest of all time in Super Bowl history, to Kadarius Toney? What if it works out, with some other plays for the Eagles as that game goes? The what if game will be strong. It will be disappointing. It'll be devastating. It'll be mentally taxing. That is Philly sports. And yeah, that's just how it goes. So again, our season just gets started now. If you're following the podcast, we do a lot of draft content. That's where we see our highest views and everything like that. We'll go full throttle with that this off season for sure, because it seems to be what the people want. But I think now I'm going to take a mental vacation, because that was exhausting, and I forgot how much energy you expend in big moments like that. And between the Phillies run and now the Eagles run, I think I'm tired. I'm just tired. So thank you to everybody who watched this year, watched the game day reaction show, watched Kevin and I. Thank you to everybody who we interviewed. Thank you to Vince for producing all of these shows for us, getting the clips out on social media so we can engage with people, getting them on TikTok for our power rankings, so that we can list the Chiefs as number 1 for most of the season. I think if we do one final power rankings, just for irony's sake, we should do that. But no, thank you to everybody. We'll be back, but I think I'm going to take a nap first.